You said the wrong thing at work, and now everything feels different. Your manager's eyebrows went up. Just for a second, but you saw it. The room shifted. Someone looked away, and the conversation kept moving like nothing happened. But something happened. And 3 hours later, you're sitting in your car, replaying it, word by word, trying to figure out where it went wrong. Here's what nobody tells you. It wasn't a big blow-up. It wasn't a fight. It was one phrase, quiet, automatic, said without thinking. And one of those phrases, you probably said this week. My name is Ricky, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people accidentally hold themselves back at work without ever realizing it. If you feel like something invisible is blocking your growth, hit subscribe. Stick around. This one is going to matter. Look, most people go to work every single day genuinely trying. They show up, they do the work, they're not causing drama, they want to grow, they want to be recognized, and they can't figure out why it's not happening. Nobody pulls them aside and says, "Hey, the way you talk under pressure is costing you." Your manager doesn't say it, your coworkers won't say it. HR definitely isn't sending you a memo. You just feel it, that invisible ceiling, that quiet sense that something is off but you can't name it. And the frustrating thing, you're not even doing anything obviously wrong. You're just saying certain phrases, automatically, without thinking. Phrases you picked up somewhere along the way and never questioned. But here's what's actually happening underneath all of that. Every time things get stressful at work, every time you're overwhelmed, caught off guard, or asked to do something outside your comfort zone, your brain goes into a mode, a self-protection mode. And the words that come out in that mode, they make complete sense to you in the moment. They feel honest, they feel fair, but to the people listening, especially the ones above you, they signal something you never intended to signal. They signal that you're not quite ready. Not because you're not capable, not because you don't work hard, but because the language of self-protection sounds very different from the language of leadership. And most people spend years at work never realizing those are two different things. That gap, right there, is what this video is about. Most people believe that if you do good work, the rest takes care of itself. Keep your head down, produce results, let your output speak. And honestly, that gets you started, but it doesn't get you far. Picture two people, same skills, same output, same work ethic. One of them walks into every difficult moment sounding like someone who moves things forward. The other uses language that makes people quietly wonder if there'll be a problem when things get hard. Who gets the promotion? It's not even close. Now you might be thinking, "Ricky, this sounds like I have to fake it." I hear you, but there's a real difference between being fake and being intentional. Fake means dishonest. Intentional means you understand that your words create a picture and you have a say in what that picture looks like. The truth nobody says out loud is this: the phrases that quietly damage your reputation, they don't sound dangerous, they sound totally reasonable. That's the whole problem. They feel like honesty, like humility, like just being real. But here's something I want to plant in your head early, before we get into the phrases themselves. These 4 phrases aren't random bad habits, they're survival instincts. Every single one of them is your brain trying to protect you, protect your time, protect your identity, protect your reputation. And that's actually understandable. But the workplace doesn't reward survival instincts, it rewards leadership instincts. And those are wired completely differently. Survival says, protect yourself first. Leadership says, move the situation forward. We're going to come back to that idea later, because once it clicks, everything makes more sense. For now, just understand this. You don't have to choose between being real and being respected. You just have to understand which version of the truth you're telling and what it sounds like on the other side. All right, phrase number 1. That's not my job. Why it hurts you? The moment you say this, especially in front of others, every person in earshot files it away, not as a reasonable boundary, as a warning sign. Because workplaces are unpredictable, priorities shift, things overflow, and what leaders always notice, whether they say it or not, is who sounds like a teammate when things get messy. That phrase says, "I step back when it gets hard." The fix is simple. You don't have to do everything. You just have to sound like someone who cares about the outcome. Try, "That's a little outside my usual lane, but let me see what I can do." Or, "I want to make sure I'm not dropping my current priorities. Can we talk about how to handle this?" One sentence, same truth, but now you sound like someone who solves problems instead of reporting them. Phrase number 2. I was never trained on that. Why it hurts you? Even when it's true, this phrase hands the problem to someone else, usually your manager, which puts them in an awkward spot, and people remember awkward spots. The fix: lead with ownership, not explanation. Try, "I haven't done this before, but I'm willing to figure it out. Do you have a resource I can start with?" One sentence, same truth, but now you sound like someone who solves problems instead of reporting them. Phrase number 3. That's just how I am. Why it hurts you? The other person hears, "I'm not open to feedback. Don't invest in developing me." And here's the brutal reality. Leaders invest in people they believe can grow. The moment you signal that growth is stopped, the investment stops too. The fix: you don't have to agree with every piece of feedback, but you have to show the door is open. Try, "I hear you, I'll sit with that." That's it, 4 words. You haven't agreed with anything, but you've shown that you're still in the conversation, and staying in the conversation is everything. Phrase number 4. I already told someone about this. Why it hurts you? In a high-pressure moment, this phrase makes you sound more focused on avoiding blame than fixing the problem. Leaders want problem solvers in the room, not people tracking who dropped the ball. The fix: lead with the solution. Here's where we are, and here's what I think we should do next. One sentence. You've just changed how everyone in that room sees you. Let me make this real. Marcus has been at his company for 3 years. Smart, hardworking, his team genuinely likes him. But every review season, something's off. Decent feedback, no real movement. His manager, Diana, finally sits him down. She says, "Marcus, when things get difficult, your language makes people feel like you're stepping back instead of stepping in." Marcus is confused. He doesn't see it. Diana gives him one example. A few months back, during a stressful product launch, someone asked Marcus to help coordinate something technically outside his role, in front of the whole team. Marcus said, "That's really not my area. You should check with someone else." He didn't yell. He wasn't rude. He was just drawing a line. But Diana never forgot it. Now flip it. Same stress, same moment, but Marcus says, "I'm a bit stretched, but let me make a couple calls and figure out who can own this." Same result. He didn't do the task, but the picture was completely different. That's the thing about workplace language. It's often not about what actually happened. It's about the story the words told in the moment. Now meet Priya. Priya is sharp, new to the team, but clearly capable. One day, her manager gives her some feedback. She could be more concise in team meetings. Priya's instinct is to defend herself, and she does. "I mean, this is just how I communicate. It's always worked for me before." Technically, not wrong. Her style had worked in other places. But in this environment, it wasn't landing. And the moment she said, "This is just how I am," her manager mentally noted, "Not coachable yet." That note didn't go on any official record, but it lived in her manager's head for months, and it quietly shaped every decision made about Priya's future on that team. And then there's the 4th phrase situation, which I've seen play out in almost every workplace. Something falls through the cracks, a deadline gets missed, tension is high, and someone in the room says, "I already sent that to the team last week." Again, might be completely true, but in that high-pressure moment, it sounds like you're more focused on the paper trail than the problem. Compare that to someone who says, "Here's where we are, and here's what I think we should do next." That person becomes the anchor of the room, the one people turn to, the one who gets remembered when it's time to talk about who's ready for the next level. Same stressful moment, same amount of information,
completely different reputation being built in real time. That's how careers quietly diverge, not in the big dramatic moments, in the small pressure-filled ones that nobody's officially tracking, but everybody's unconsciously remembering. Okay, stop here for a second, because I think there's something much bigger going on underneath all four of these phrases. They're not random bad habits. They're not signs that you're difficult or immature or not a team player. They are survival instincts. That's not my job as a boundary. I was never trained on that is self-protection. That's just how I am is an identity defense. I already told someone about this is blame avoidance. Every single one of them makes complete psychological sense. Your brain is trying to keep you safe from overwork, from unfair blame, from criticism that doesn't feel fair.
That's human. That's normal. But here's the thing that changes everything when you really sit with it. The workplace doesn't reward survival instincts. It rewards leadership instincts, and those are completely different wiring. Survival says, protect yourself from the situation. Leadership says, take responsibility for the situation. And the higher you go in any organization, the more that distinction matters, because leadership is fundamentally about inspiring confidence in the people around you. And confidence doesn't come from someone who sounds like they're managing their own exposure. It comes from someone who sounds like they're moving things forward. Now, I want to be really clear. This isn't about being a pushover. It's not about absorbing blame that isn't yours. That's not leadership either. It's about understanding that there is almost always a version of the truth you can tell that sounds like a leader instead of someone in survival mode. And the people who figure that out early, they move through their careers differently. They end up in different rooms, having different conversations. Not because they're smarter, not because they worked harder, because they learned to speak the language of leadership in the small moments nobody thinks are being watched. Those moments are always being watched. Your reputation at work builds slowly, quietly, over hundreds of tiny moments. A comment in a meeting, a response under pressure, how you handle a mistake, what you say when something falls apart. Nobody sits down and consciously decides, I don't trust this person. It just accumulates, impression by impression, phrase by phrase. And the flip side is equally true. Every time you replace a reactive phrase with a leadership phrase, you're making a deposit into a reputation account that pays out over years, not weeks, years. That's the mindset shift underneath all of this. Stop seeing each conversation as isolated. Start thinking about the picture you're building over time in the minds of the people who decide what happens next in your career. Because intentionality compounds, just like interest compounds. The earlier you start, the bigger the return. And the beautiful thing about this particular skill, it costs nothing. No degree, no certification, no years of waiting. Just awareness, and then a little practice. And then it becomes who you are. You're not just choosing better words, you're slowly becoming the kind of person whose words people trust. All right, let's bring it home. 4 phrases, 4 quiet reputation killers that most people say without ever thinking twice. That's not my job. Replace it with language that sounds like a teammate even when you're setting a real boundary. You don't have to do everything, you just have to sound like you care about the outcome. I was never trained on that. Replace it with ownership. Even when the gap isn't your fault, how you respond to it is entirely yours. Lead with willingness. That's just how I am. This one closes doors invisibly. Replace it with openness. Show people the door is still open, even if you disagree with what's on the other side. I already told someone about this. In high-pressure moments, lead with the solution, not the trail of who dropped the ball. Be the person who anchors the room. And underneath all 4, remember what this is really about. Your technical skills get you in the room. Your communication determines how long you stay there and how high you go. Most people spend years developing their skills and almost 0 time developing their language under pressure. That's the gap, and now you know it exists. Think back to that moment in the car, replaying the conversation, wondering where it went wrong. That version of you was paying attention. That version of you knew something mattered. Now you know what to do with that feeling. Because the version of you that shows up when things get hard, that's the version people remember. That's the version that gets trusted. That's the version that moves. Nobody gets this perfect right away. I definitely haven't. But awareness is where it starts, and you've already got that now. So this week, just pay attention. Next time you're in a stressful moment at work, notice what phrase almost comes out. Notice if it's one of these four. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be a little more intentional than you were yesterday. If this landed for you, drop a comment below. Tell me which phrase you've caught yourself saying. I genuinely read those and it helps me understand what to make next. And if someone in your life needs to hear this, send it to them quietly. No explanation needed. They'll know why you sent it. Hit subscribe if you're sticking around. We talk about the real stuff here. All right, I'll see you in the next one.